After waiting a month for a package shipped all the way from Germany, was it finally worth every single day of anticipation? Every dollar we spent on it? Hi, and welcome back to Whitetail Acres Farm. If you've been following along with us here on the channel, you already know that we have been on a real mission lately. And that mission is to replace as much of our grocery store staples as we possibly can, right here on this farm. And today we're taking a really big step towards that goal. A few months ago, I started looking into stone grain mills. And the more I researched, the more I kept coming back to one name, the Mockmill. It's handcrafted in Germany, uses genuine stone burrs, and it's built to last a lifetime. So I ordered one. And then I waited and waited, weeks of checking the tracking number, wondering if it was sitting in a customs warehouse somewhere across the Atlantic. But today is finally here, and I have to tell you, I am genuinely thrilled. Okay, let's see what we got here. This is nice. It's pretty heavy. You can tell it's a quality machine, and it's pretty solid. The outer casing is made from sustainably sourced beechwood, and then inside are two genuine corundum ceramic millstones, the same type of millstone that's been used for centuries to mill grain and flour. And you can tell this is not just some sort of plastic, throwaway type appliance like you see today in so many cases. This is a quality machine that we're going to keep for a very long time. So why did we choose the Mockmill over some other options out there? Honestly, a few reasons. First, stone milling preserves the bran, the germ, and the endosperm of the grain, all together the way nature intended. When you buy flour at the store, even whole wheat flour, that germ has usually been removed to extend shelf life. With freshly milled flour, you're getting every single nutrient the grain has to offer. Second, and this is something I did not fully appreciate until I started really digging into it, freshly milled flour behaves differently in baking. The oils in the germ are still alive and active. Your sourdough starter has more to work with. The flavor is deeper, and it's really something you cannot get from a bag off a shelf. Third, and this is something that really sealed the deal for me, the Mockmill has multiple grind settings. We're not just talking about fine flour for baking. This mill can go coarse enough for grits, cornmeal, cracked meal, the full range. And that matters to us because this summer we're planning to grow our own Dent corn right here on the farm. Dent corn is specifically grown for drying and milling, not eating fresh off the cob. The plan is to harvest it, dry it down, and run it through this mill for truly homemade grits. From our soil, through our mill, onto our table. That is the kind of self-sufficiency that gets me really excited. One mill, flour, grits, cornmeal, whatever we need. That versatility is exactly what a working homestead kitchen calls for. And the fourth thing, the grain source. We are really fortunate to have connected with a local farmer not far from us who grows certified organic grain. We worked out a great deal with him and came home with 100 pounds of quality grain, which is now stored in airtight food-grade buckets right here on our homestead. 100 pounds. We are set for a while. And honestly, that is one of the things I am most excited about. We now have a permanent, reliable source for fresh organic grain. Someone we know, someone we trust, and a relationship we plan to keep building. No more store-bought flour, no more store-bought bread. That chapter is closing. Okay, now before I put a single grain of our beautiful organic wheat through this wonderful machine, I need to clean it first. This is our first time using it. And although the directions say that you can just get a handful of the wheat and put it in the machine and run it through and then discard that. In my research on the machine, I have read a lot of suggestions on using rice instead. And so I would much rather run some rice through to clean it and then discard the rice than discard some really good usable organic flour or organic wheat. So we're going to start this and run probably a handful of at a time of about a cup worth of this just white rice. And then what that's going to do is during your first use, you want to be able to clean out any residue that might be inside the machine just from the manufacturing process and being in the factory. And it's normal for maybe some residue to still be on the machine, and you don't want any of that ending up in whatever you're baking and in that flour that you're going to use. So once you put the rice through the machine, it helps collect anything that might be sitting in the machine still and really gives it a good natural clean without having to use any products or anything in there. So this is what we're going to do first, and it'll be our first time turning this on, seeing if it works, and hopefully I don't break it. This is gorgeous. Okay, I got it plugged in, and now it says to start the machine first. I have it on the second setting for the rice, which is a tad bit higher of a setting than what it says I really need, but I'd rather start on a higher setting and then work my way down. So here we go. So first I'm going to turn it on, and it's probably going to be loud. Okay, so far not as loud as I was expecting, so that's good. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of this in. That did a fantastic job. So now I'm just going to discard this rice because it did its job and it got the machine nice and clean. And now I think we are ready to really put it to use and start milling some flour. So let's get to it. Okay, now the moment that I've been waiting for weeks now. Let's mill some flour. The process is actually simpler than I expected. You set the grind setting, coarser for things like grits or cornmeal, finer for bread flour, fill the hopper with your grain, and let the stones do the work. Now, one thing I want to mention that I was not aware of previously is that freshly milled flour is what bakers call thirsty. It absorbs more water than aged flour, so if you're adapting a recipe, you will want to account for that. I have done a little reading ahead of time, so we're going to go with a plan. So nice. It's like sand. And it smells almost like a fresh nutty flavor. It smells good. This is the coloring and the smell and just the feel of it. This is completely different than the white flour that I have sitting in the pantry right now. This is so nice. I cannot wait to bake a loaf of bread. Before we bake though, if it's your first time here and first time watching, welcome. On our channel, we share all of our homesteading adventures from our livestock and garden to right here in the kitchen. And I have a lot planned for this grain mill. So hit that subscribe button so you can follow along with all of our exciting kitchen adventures baking with our new grain mill. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to bake today. We are going to bake just a classic sourdough bread, and it only uses 4 ingredients: the freshly milled flour that we just milled, salt, water, and sourdough starter. First, I need to share with you a funny story about the sourdough. So I tried starting my own sourdough starter a while back and flat out failed with that. And then a friend of ours who has been making sourdough products now for a long time, she was gracious and gave us some of her sourdough starter. And she has 3 or 4 different starters right now that she maintains different types of flour. She has gluten-free and regular and some different kinds depending on what she's baking and who she's baking for, but she names them all. And so she gave us this starter and named it Bert, which we thought was super cute. And so I used this starter to make a bigger batch of starter, and so her starter I now keep in the refrigerator as my backup, my go-to. So I take it out every couple weeks and feed it, and then I can use some of it if I want, and I always have it. It's there. This is my starter that I use on a regular basis, and I can keep out on the counter, and then I just continually feed it and use it when I need to. But our daughter thought it would be fitting to name this sourdough too. So now we have Bert, and she decided to name this one Gerald. So Bert, I fed earlier today, and it's looking good. So I'm just going to set him aside. We don't need him right now. Gerald is going to do some of the heavy lifting for us today, and you can see it is looking fantastic. Nice and bubbly. I had started it about here. It's more than doubled. It's ready to go. So, all right, let's get to it. So, when baking, especially with the sourdough, I learned you need a good scale. This one has grams, so that way you can make sure you're very precise about all of the measurements for the ingredients. And so I'm just going to measure out my ingredients here, get it all mixed up, and get that dough ball started. So let's go. For this recipe, we're using 339 grams of our fresh milled whole wheat flour, 226 grams of water, 120 grams of active sourdough starter, and 9 grams of salt. The first step is mixing all of the ingredients together until you have a shaggy dough with no dry spots. It doesn't need to look pretty at this stage, it just needs to come together. Then we will let it rest and begin what's called stretch and fold. Every 30 minutes for about 2.5 hours, each set of folds develops the gluten structure and builds the beautiful open crumb we're after. You can see the dough transforming with every fold, getting smoother, more elastic, and more alive. After the folds are done, the dough goes through bulk fermentation. We're looking for it to grow about 50 to 75% in size. Because we're using fresh milled flour with more active enzymes, fermentation can move a little bit faster than you're used to, so keep an eye on it. So it's the next day, and Yesterday, I made the dough and I did all the stretches and folds, and then I ended up putting it in the refrigerator later in the day so that way it continued to proof overnight. And that's what I typically do when I make sourdough bread. And I find that it helps it rise even more, it gets more of that crumb, and it just works well for me. So I did that with this bread, and I can tell already that it rose quite a bit. It's like probably more than doubled, maybe almost tripled in size from when we started yesterday. So that's a really good sign. And now I'm going to give it its last stretch, and then we can start baking it and see how it is. The difference between the first fold and the last one is remarkable. This is what fresh flour and a strong starter look like when they're working together. Once it's proofed, we shape it, pulling the surface taut to build tension and for a final rest before baking. We're baking this in a Dutch oven. The enclosed space traps steam in those first critical minutes of baking, which is what gives sourdough its signature blistered, crackly crust. Preheat your oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit with the Dutch oven inside. You want it ripping hot before that dough goes in. I like to take a piece of parchment paper, sprinkle some flour on it, and then lay the dough on there before putting it in the Dutch oven. It makes for much easier cleanup later. Score the top of the dough ball with a sharp blade. This controls where the loaf opens up and lets steam escape, and then it goes into the oven. Keep the lid on for the first 20 minutes of baking, and then take the lid off for the last 20 to 25 minutes of baking, just until the crust is a deep amber color. Then, the hardest part, letting it cool completely before you cut into it. At least an hour. The crumb is still setting inside, and if you cut too early, it'll be a little bit gummy. I know, it's almost impossible to wait. It smells so good. Okay. Let's see how it is. Has a nice hollow sound when you tap on the bottom of it, which is a good sign. And that color. Nice deepened ambers, browns, very rustic and natural looking. That's exactly what we're looking for. So, moment of truth. Let's see what it looks like inside. I love the hard crust. And that looks pretty good. Pretty good for our first one. You can see it's still pretty soft in there. You can see all of like the little nooks and crannies. Oh, and that crumb. You can see the bran from our freshly milled flour running through the whole loaf. It's rustic, it's real, it's not a grocery store bread. This bread that started as whole grain on a farm ran through a German stone mill that spent a month being made and crossing the ocean, ending up right here on our kitchen table. All in all, this was a really productive and exciting day here at Whitetail Acres. A month of waiting, and I have to say, it was absolutely worth every single day. The Mockmill has officially earned its place here at our kitchen. If you've been thinking about getting into grain milling or sourdough baking, or both, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And if you're already milling your own flour at home, drop us some tips down in the comments. I'm still learning and I would love to hear what's working for you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more homesteading kitchen adventures, along with everything else going on our farm. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.